Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, viewers, friends of Iqra TV. Welcome to another edition of Real Talk. I'm your host, Iqbal Bana. As I keep saying to you every week, I come into your homes, invading your privacy, talking to you about issues that are of concern to the Muslim community or the wider community, or of issues of interest that we should be aware of. Every week I try and bring some important people to you, guests who can throw some light, give us some advice, some guidance, and maybe show us a way forward on what we need to be doing. Today, I was going to talk about Gaza, as I have been doing for many, many weeks, but today's report, which has been published about the Rochdale grooming issue, the child sexual exploitation, which has hit the press. It's been all across the media today, and the right-wing press and the left-wing press have been really using that as a fodder to try and have a go at Pakistani Muslims around the country. I want to talk to you about that, and today, quite appropriately, my friend and colleague who I've known for many, many years, and you've witnessed him being here with me on the studio, whose counsel I respect and value, who lives in Rochdale, Maqsood Ahmad, who was here with me last week as well, talking about Gaza and politics. He lives in Rochdale, has been almost lived all his life in Rochdale. He's worked around equality and diversity all his life. He's a champion of equality and diversity, and he means equality and diversity for all people. So here today we have seen this report, which has been highlighted and publicized throughout the day, and probably will be for the next few days, talking about Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs abusing a number of young girls, some below the age of 13. And this has been going on for many, many years, but this is a second case. Previously there have been 9 convictions. Most of the victims were white young girls, but I know that in the past there have been victims from the Asian community as well. So Maqsood, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to, I hope, Maqsood, I've been told there's some slightly technical issues, but this is an issue that I think we've touched upon before, that this is something that is particularly of concern, not just in the white community, about the extent of the involvement of young Asian, mainly Pakistani Muslim men who abuse girls below the age of 13 or the age of 18 or 16. And why is it that we have this propensity to get involved in these sort of activities? Now, we're not talking about the whole community. We're talking about a few misguided, misinformed predators, basically, who seem to target young girls and who enjoy in what they're doing. The depravity of this young man has no bounds. The way they abuse these young girls and the way they do it has been something that is horrific. I've been watched horrifically, and I'm sure most parents who have children, particularly girls, will be horrified with some of the acts that they have been accused of being committing. I know for a fact that in the past, many young Muslim girls, be it Pakistani or Indian, in our areas have been targeted by mainly Pakistani taxi drivers and have been abused. And these are girls who used to go to school from home. When they got to school, they used to bunk off from school and disappear with these taxi drivers. What is it that drives these men to commit these heinous, depraved acts within our communities, targeting not only white girls, although they are predominantly white girls, but also our Muslim girls as well? So this is a subject I want to talk about. I was hoping to get a couple of people onto my studio. Unfortunately, some of the ulama that I invited have teaching commitments today and therefore will not be able to join me. They have joined me in the past, and I'm sure they will join me again in the near future as well. But I have Maqsood Ahmad, who has joined me from Rochdale over Zoom. So I'm grateful that he's going to be talking about this. As I say, he's a committed champion and campaigner for equality and social justice. The report highlights that both the police, the local authority, particularly social service department, and the education authorities failed these women, these young girls. Maqsood, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining me. Last week I had the pleasure of you having been in the studio with me. Today, because this came out very late, we're doing this on Zoom. You, a Rochdale resident living in Rochdale, which is a significant Pakistani Muslim community, as a person living in that town, how do you feel when you hear about these cases, although they're not new, as we said before?
They're not new, but it's been going on for around over 20 years now. Iqbal Bhai, thank you for inviting me back again. Um, it's been a I feel for the young women, the victims actually, and their families. What's been going on for so many years, and the failures of our public services, including the police service, the local authority, and the others. So it's not a new matter for us, and it doesn't do the town any good because of it's a shaming for the town as well, and particularly the Asian community because these people, the perpetrators obviously from an Asian background. So there's multiple issues and challenges for the community that we're facing in Rochdale. And sadly, this is another one. It's not a very good story at all. It's a shameful story for the community. And also, for the public services like the police service not getting it right. It must be awful for the women involved.
I mean, obviously, Maksud, I know whatever you said is absolutely correct and true. We all feel for these young victims. Nobody should be victims of sexual abuse, regardless of their color, race, religion, faith, or the socioeconomic structure. What has been proved, and this, unfortunately, this has not just happened within Rochdale. There are many, many towns and cities where this has been going on. And unfortunately, until very recently, the predominant perpetrators seem to be, and the report seems to highlight this, a young Pakistani Muslim male who work either in the taxi industry or in the fast food industry. Now, this has happened in other parts of the country as well, and we know there's lots of cases going on. It's happening in Bradford, it's happening in other parts as well. Now, if anybody wants to talk about this issue, please feel free to ring in and share your thoughts. 01274 214 299. Why is it? But let me also make this very clear, Maksud, and I know when I spoke to you last time about this, the Child Sexual Exploitation Agency, the first report that ever came out, was conducted by the then chief executive by the name of Peter Davis. And in that report, what they found out was that 97% of child sexual exploitation that takes place is one-to-one. So it's one perpetrator and usually one victim. 3% of the exploitation that takes place is what they call street or gang grooming. So in the 3% is where the majority or virtually all of the Pakistani Muslim young people are involved. And Peter was quite at pains when he launched that report to the press to say, look, don't focus on the 3%, focus on the 97%. Unfortunately, the press being the type of press that we have in this country, which is very anti-Muslim and Islamophobic, and to a certain extent, could be construed as racist, they focused on the 3%, and they've blown up. Quite rightly, we need to identify this, but why is it that, our young people don't seem to value young girls? As I said, I'm not sure whether you heard me or not, but the victims are not just white girls. I know for a fact that there are many, many young Muslim, Indian, Pakistani girls as well who have been fallen victims to these gangs.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think these perpetrators are basically, they'll go after anybody, not particularly just white young women. Whoever's available or vulnerable, they probably will go to. And it's interesting that the issues around about the services, these men are working at the taxi driving, the takeaways and the meeting places and so forth. That seem to be a common strand there that's picking up. But you're also right, this is the 3%. Don't forget, majority of child abuse and so forth is done by the white community. We mustn't forget that. But no doubt, our media and the way we are in the current climate, the right-wing media and the right-wing sort of organizations will pick this up and make it into
Can you increase your volume by any chance? I'm really struggling to hear you. I'm not sure whether it's at your end or whether it's our end. But yeah, I think the points you're making, failure of the agencies is a very important issue here. And the agencies have to be held account, right? There's no doubt about it. The police failed, the council failed, the social service department failed, the education establishments failed as well. But where do we put, I'm sure people in the community knew what was going on, right?
Or well, if they did, Iqbal, we can't. Yeah, we can't automatically assume they did. For example, if they did, then they have a responsibility to report that as well as responsible citizens of Rochdale.
I'm really sorry, Maksud. At the moment, I'm still struggling to hear what you're saying.
I've got
The
it
volume seems
maximum.
to
Yeah,
somewhere going wrong. But
yeah.
I think I know what you're saying, that the
I've,
community may not have been aware. Individuals may have been aware of what was going on rather than the
yeah.
community. But I mean, I'm sure within our community, we may have heard rumors about what was going on. I know for a fact that in Batley and Dewsbury, in the early 80s, late 80s, schools were reporting to parents that your girls are not coming into school, whereas girls were leaving home to go to school. They were getting to the school, and then they were being picked up by mainly taxi drivers, and they were disappearing. And yet, the parents could report them, but the education authorities failed, in my view, in actually challenging that behavior and doing something more substantial about it. But the parents seem to be hopeless. Now, what do you feel that the community actually sort of got themselves in a situation where, because of the embarrassment that this could cause, did not really take a proactive action around it?
Well, there's two things, isn't there? There's one is that the embarrassment is definitely one of the things that's happened here there. But don't forget, Iqbal Bhai, is there one could challenge us and saying, is there a good relationship between the education department and the Pakistani or the Asian community or the police service? If you look at the track record of the public services, they don't all have a good track record of confidence building within our communities. So that's one factor that we, even in 2024, we still haven't got this bridge between the public services in our communities. That there's a confidence on both sides. So there's a lot more work needs to be done there because of the issues around prevent and everything else. We won't go into that. So there may be some people who don't want to go to the police because there isn't a good relationship, even though they might know that this is taking place. Those who want to report it to the police service, maybe they don't know how to report it to the police service. Maybe they don't trust them when it comes towards these things. So yes, there is a responsibility on the community, especially the so-called community leaders who can actually take some action and liaise between the community and the public services. But whether there is good confidence within the community to make that happen, I don't think there is at the moment, to be honest with you.
Well, I currently, obviously, we know that the confidence of the community in the criminal justice system and the wider public service is quite sort of dented and quite low. But I mean, in those days, one of the accusations that have been made against the institutional organizations, both the local authority and the Department of Education, is that they were afraid of creating sort of Muslim, anti-Asian feelings. So this multiculturalism, that they wanted to avoid creating more conflict and tensions within the community, and therefore they did not take the actions that they should have taken. Do you think that that was the wrong tactic used by the police in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s?
I don't agree with that statement because I don't think that, from my experience of working with the criminal justice system, if anybody, an Asian or anybody or Indian or a person of color or African Caribbean did something wrong, the police were quite, straightforward there and they'll sort it out. Are you with me? They're too eager to arrest them. So to say that the police were shying away because it was a particular racial group, I don't buy that, to be honest with you. I think the police should have done the work. If there were grooming taking place and the police should have arrested those men, I can't see any individual, whether it's a community leader or a religious leader, who would say, don't touch our community when if they know this is happening. I just don't believe that. I think it was a lack of confidence in the police service. And sometimes also, Iqbal Bhai, it's important to realize when you get caught where there's a public services, if you haven't done your job properly, it's easy to blame others, saying, well, we didn't really want to upset community relations. That's nonsense. When a crime is being committed, Iqbal Bhai, there's nothing to do with community relations. You should actually, take action against the perpetrator.
Well,
Crimes have been committed
agree
here.
with you. Yeah, 100% agree with you. That, when a crime has been committed.
If the police are saying, well, we didn't want to rock the boat because they was from a certain racial group, well, I think that's wrong. I think they should have gone in.
I totally agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. We're going for a short break. This is an important subject. It is touching everyone's lives at the moment, and particularly the Muslim communities in the, as they say, in the sights of the media, etc., etc. And we're going to be hearing about this over the next few days. It's going to put us in the telescope. So please stay with us. Inshallah, we'll get back to you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.